How's it going, everybody? Welcome to FoundFlix. On this Ending Explained, we're looking at I See You, where strange occurrences plague a small-town detective and his family as he investigates the disappearance of a young boy. Well, that is one way to describe this movie, and I might argue that that is misleading, which becomes a prominent theme with this film. There's the idea of misdirection in a film, where they present things one way initially and then later show you a different perspective that blows your mind. But here, they don't really pay consideration to what came before. So it's just like, so that doesn't matter anymore. Okay. The movie also feels very disjointed, starting off as a kind of potentially supernatural family situation, and then suddenly shifts into a kind of found footage home invasion thing. And the juxtaposition was a little tough, which also comes in with the final mini twists and reveals about what is really going on. So I can definitely understand why people might ultimately feel confused by where things turn out. And to some extent, this is due to the filmmakers being more interested in making a thrilling mystery than a tight, meaningful story. And I'm not even sure why the heck Helen Hunt was in this thing. Most of the time, she's just staring off into space all pilled out like, Anyway, let's dig into I See You, breaking down the story of the Harper family and their unwelcome visitors, along with the many late twists that take things into a whole other direction, and just what the real reason is for all of those strange occurrences. Following a river and forested area, we come to a small, bustling downtown square, setting up for something big with an ice cream truck and everything. People mill around as one boy, Justin, on a bike breaks off on his own, passing over a bridge and taking a fork leading into the dense forest, getting deeper onto a rugged trail, the feeling turning quite ominous. And out of nowhere, he's lifted off of his bike several feet into the air by a force of some kind, and we're like, whoa, what kind of supernatural shenanigans have we got here? Evil forest entity? Tree goblins? Could be anything. Turns out it's a lot less interesting than this moment leads us to believe. We move on to a pretty massive and nice house nestled at the end of the water, tracking through many empty rooms accompanied by a strange pulsing and string soundtrack, which is maybe trying a bit too hard to make this seem foreboding. I mean, it's just a bedroom, you know? What's so freaking scary about that? Kind of turn it down a couple notches. We are then introduced to the Harper family, which is experiencing some obvious tensions. Mother Jackie seems to have her own issues, staring off blankly into space while cooking pancakes. Her kid coming down, informing her that something's burning, snapping her back to reality. By the way, those cow print chairs are a bold choice. Wouldn't even do that kind of shit even in Texas. They're ugly. Connor seems a bit testy with his mom, noticing that he has an eye bruise, and showing us that there are clearly familial issues here. Dear old dad Greg wakes up on the couch. Connor thinking he was doing it on purpose, but says he just fell asleep watching TV. But the kid is all, I wouldn't blame you after what she did. Uh-oh, what did she do? Had an affair, obviously. And this seems to be, at least at first, the family's big issue. Dad notices the bruise, asking if he got into a fight, but Connor smirks back, you should see the other two kids, proud that he made one of them cry. Well, okay, really weird dynamic in this family here, and getting a little bully in training vibe from Connor, most likely lashing out after his mom's whole thing. And Greg ascends the stairs, stopped midway at a wall of photos, noticing that one is just a cardboard square, looking like the photo was removed. But why? Jackie is out on the town, looking in a drugged out daze as usual, staring at some kids being guided by a teacher on a yarn leash. She calls her husband, only getting out that she has something to say before he abruptly cuts her off and hangs up, angrily tossing the phone through the window. Him reacting with an, are you kidding me? No, you just did that. You threw something through a window, it tends to break. That's what happens. And seeing Daddy's got some underlying rage issues going on too. He sees Jackie's favorite sunflower coffee mug on the roof, finding some butts inside, assuming Connor responsible. Seeing Jackie as a counselor of some kind, she starts off the day right with some more meds, the receptionist sending her first patient in. Wow, she has totally checked out from what I can tell. Must really be regretting that affair now, eh, Jackie? Turns out Greg is a detective, getting a call about the kid Justin going missing, only finding his bike at the scene. Him asking if it could be connected to Michael King, another recently abducted boy, but they aren't sure quite yet. Joining forces with Detective Spitz, a bunch of people comb the area where the bike was found, as Jackie returns home with more super dramatic music, like opening the garage. Yeah, I'm in sheer terror over here. She finds their silverware drawer is oddly empty, calling out to Connor, and gets startled by a window repairman who's just finishing up his work. She's confused, asking who let him in, him saying that kid kid of yours. You trained her well. Who? She asks, but by then he's gone. Who is her? A ghost kid or something? Fingers crossed. At least it's a polite ghost. That is always a plus. Back at the scene, an officer addresses the crowd, telling them to be on the lookout for clues, while Greg and Spitz discuss the boy's family, which all sounds fine. The perfect all-American family, he says. Oh yeah, aren't they all, he bemuses, since, his family is in the toilet right now. Someone uncovers a green pocket knife, which we learn has real significance, tied to a man named Cole Gordon that was before Greg's time, but Spitz worked the case. They found 6 boys, all buried with these knives, but Gordon is still in jail. Spitz knows because he put him there himself. So is Gordon back, or are we dealing with a copycat situation? Jackie and Connor have an awkward, intense dinner, sitting in silence until she asks about the repairman, and Connor flies off the handle, accusing her of screwing the repairman. She tries to calm him down to no avail, him demanding to know who it was, but she refuses, causing him to get even more pissed, yowling, "You ruined our family and you should pay for it," and stomps off. Overhearing on the news that they're discussing Justin, the second missing boy in the last month, she turns the TV off, but oddly, it immediately turns itself back on, and gets surprised by Daddy coming home. She mentions trying to call him all day, and he just kind of stands there drinking a beer, then informs him that she reported the repairman, thinking he must have stolen their silverware, but he's annoyed, mumbling he doesn't know what's wrong with her, and goes to the stairs stopped by the same empty frame, helping himself to some of his wife's sweet Ambien, swigging it down with a taste of beer. Seeing Connor's guinea pig has gotten out, he follows after, scurrying into another room and into the closet, and suddenly gets the door slammed closed on him, trapped inside, thinking it's Connor playing a joke. Does he actually play jokes? They always think it's him, but he's never actually responsible. Oh well. It's Jackie that lets him out, saying she heard pounding, and he runs off searching intently around the house and outside, but finds nothing. Oh, Connor. She offers for him to come back upstairs to sleep, and says he's going to move his stuff into the guest room. Not sure that that's what she's meant, but still better than the couch, I'd imagine. She understands that he can't just forgive her, but she says she's willing to do whatever it takes. But he calls their whole marriage into question, asking if she really wanted to marry him as he's a shitty cop with no money. Would they really be together if she hadn't gotten pregnant? But she's positive that she's happy things worked out the way they did, and promises that she's trying to do better. Wow, so we know, I guess, that her counseling business must be freaking booming. How else could they afford this insane house? Meanwhile, she's just popping pills and blabbering at people for tons of cash, apparently. Good work, Jackie, and in a small town too. That must be one expensive session. Later that night, she's awoken by an indistinct male voice, finding it's from a game on Connor's laptop, and grabs some laundry as Connor comes in, her saying that she wants to take him to school in the morning, obviously worried about him being kidnapped. She attempts to get nostalgic, finding a stuffed animal from Connor's childhood, but he coldly says that he doesn't even remember it. Oh well then, never mind. And looking back under the bed, she somehow doesn't notice or doesn't care about a strange frog mask thing seen peering out from underneath. Don't worry about that, Mom. That's just the frog guy. Even stranger, while Greg is asleep, the sheets are pulled off of him. Again, what is this, a ghost or what? And he's awoken the next morning by a call from Spitz and discovers a strange wet spot all around him, throwing the sheets into the laundry without further thought. As the detectives piece together, the MO of the new abductions match that of Cole Gordon, the convicted pedophile with a truck full of those green knives, who is attempting to use this new case as means for a mistrial. How could he have done it if these kids are still going missing the same way while he's in jail? Or again, perhaps a copycat, bringing up that there were 2 of his victims that managed to get away. Spitz thinks it's a dead end as they already interviewed them both thoroughly in the past, but they think they might have more information now, and decide to track them down. Paying a visit to the Braun's home, the dad not understanding as Gordon is in prison, but regardless guides them to a small house in the backyard, seeing the now grown kid is working on some weird ornate art thing. Spitz yells out asking if he remembers him, and claims that he still has the Brontosaurus that he gave him back as a child. Well, that's cute. Tommy getting agitated, yelling no, no, no repeatedly, and seeing his face is covered in scars of some kind. They dig back into the past, listening to Spitz's original interview with younger Tommy, revealing that there was a man who said that he knew them, and that he injured his face after his time at the little house in the trees, which he says isn't there anymore, calling it a magic house that disappears, meaning that you're never gonna find him, he says. Magic disappearing house and shit? Wow, this has gotta be supernatural, right? Right? Back home, Jackie is greeted by some dude Tom, who is all touchy-feely, telling her he's in love with her, clearly the person that she had an affair with. She stays strong, telling him that she doesn't want to be with him. And out of nowhere, he gets bonked on the head by her sunflower mug. An open window seen above. Must be that eternal prankster Connor up to his old pranking ways. She brings Todd into the garage, tending to his injury, chuckling that this reminds him of high school, which is I guess when they first dated, and that mug did apparently do some pretty serious damage. Seeing the bloody rag, Jackie determines that she needs to take him to the hospital as Connor searches the house, hearing a song come on the record player downstairs. Jackie questions if he turned the record on or if that was him on the roof, which he denies, asking if she's still taking him to school. When pulling out of the driveway, she's clearly distracted or totally pilled up and nearly runs right over a lady standing in the driveway, the mother of the missing Justin. Hoping for updates on her son, Jackie assures her that they're going to find him. Todd, left alone in the garage, starts getting a little woozy, getting attacked from behind. Well, that definitely could have been Connor this time at least. Greg and Spitz are back on the case, considering if Justin knew the kidnapper, hypothesizing the kid saw the perp and then he stopped to grab him, dropping the knife to throw them off. Spitz uncovers a thin wire of sorts buried amongst the foliage, offering maybe this is what he used to stop the kid instead. Wow, okay, so apparently that moment in the intro where the kid was magically lifted off his bike was actually caused by an unseen tripwire? First of all, the perp wouldn't just leave this thing lying around. And second of all, this makes no sense. If it got him, it would have been, by the neck, kind of knocking him back, rather than magically getting lifted into the air. I mean, come on, what the heck, dude? I mean, it would have to have been attached to his back, like he's in a staged production of Peter Pan or something for this to make any sense. Poor misdirection, that is for sure. They clearly set up the opening as kind of like a big mystery, but this explanation is definitely off and disappointing. Get ready for more of that. Oh well, Jackie rushes back home, discovering Todd bleeding out and dead, enlisting Greg's help when he comes home. He asks why she didn't call an ambulance, her crying, thinking it might have been Connor responsible due to him being so angry lately. Geez, they really think that this is like the worst kid in the whole world with really no basis to even feel that way. Even Greg is like, oh, so mad he killed somebody? Her breaking down that she doesn't know what's happening. He orders her to change clothes, the couple driving to another remote area in the woods to bury the body. Connor is home alone, immersed in video games, until hearing an odd clinking noise, finding a pillowcase full of their missing silverware in the dryer, then returns to his computer, a new message waiting for him asking if he knows what frogging is. He does a Googler on it, finding a YouTube video, seeing a dude descend out of an attic and taking stuff all around the house, as a shadow begins to loom behind him in the room. The door cracks open, a man wearing that same weird frog mask we saw under his bed earlier. His parents later return, their car covered in dirt. Maybe should have stopped by a car wash on the way home, maybe help cover up burying the body and being out in the woods and everything. No time! Greg helps himself to a beer, his moment of bliss ruined by Jackie screaming, finding Connor in the bathtub tied up with a green knife stuck at the end. They load him into the car to take to the hospital, leaving Greg behind to find the son of a bitch as she drives off. At the station, the lieutenant lady comes in telling Spitz that they found the kidnapper thanks to a phone call and are tracking their GPS signal. Greg apparently isn't answering his phone, her telling him to go pick him up, but he's busy searching the house with gun in hand. He bursts into the guest room, finding a bunch of family photos with their eyes and mouths cut out, pretty weird, and the same song starts playing downstairs on the record player. When he goes to check it out, the masked dude sneaks up behind him and knocks him out. And we now abruptly switch gears to a few days prior and learn all about our frogging home invaders who were behind pretty much everything we've been seeing the whole time, which is extremely stupid. A shaky POV filming the Harper's house as Jackie leaves, and they rush up, able to get into the garage thanks to it being most likely the slowest garage door in history. The girl Mindy going through the house impressed by the view. The boy Alec moaning that nobody deserves this, obviously overwhelmed by the luxury, and even annoyed by them having so many family photos. How dare you take photos? You monsters. They enter the guest room, Mindy jumping on the covers, sending up a wave of dust in the air. Clearly hasn't been used in a long time. But according to her, they have to sleep out of sight, entering an attic crawl space that will be their home base, and learn about their intentions here. The idea is to make a documentary about professional frogging, them going from house to house without detection, only staying for a few days and trying to disrupt as little as possible. But it is okay to eat their food. As she says, girls gotta eat. Alec comes in wearing the frog face mask, scaring her, and she calls him a freak. He's obviously never done this before, and she is showing him the ropes. The best part of the day being when everyone is gone, as they can move freely around the house, until they come home later and have to hide in the attic out of sight. Later that night, at 2:10 a.m. in fact, she sees Alec outside on the roof admiring the view, admitting that he was bored, and she scolds him that he can't go out whenever he wants. He says the husband just got home, but at least he didn't see him. What's he doing coming home so late, I wonder? He doesn't seem interested in following the frogging concept of staying out of sight very well, taking the camera and filming everyone while they're asleep, getting right up in Greg's sleeping face. This being the night before the opening scene with the pancake disaster and everything. Upstairs, the Froggers are hiding. Alec is getting bored again with having to stay out of sight, thinking it would be more fun to almost get caught. Her annoyed as he begged her to come along with her, and explaining that that's not the point as they could wind up in jail. But hey, isn't this better than sleeping on benches and subways? Apparently, both of them are homeless, which explains a lot about their situation and why they're even doing this in the first place, at least Mindy. He enjoys some delicious chalky Pez from a Yoshi dispenser, nice choice, and relents to playing their word game, a 7-letter word starting with a B, distracted by Greg shattering the window with his phone below, sending them into a rush back into the attic. After he leaves, Mindy ventures to the garage, stowing her backpack there, and Alec removes another photo. As you remember, Greg kept kind of noticing something was off with the photos, but didn't ever say anything about it, and Mindy informs him that the garage is their best route if they need a quick escape. He's still on the messing with the family idea, thinking that it would be fun to make them think they're going a little crazy, showing off an app that he downloaded that turns on the TV, as we saw before when it turned itself back on with Jackie. She disagrees, telling him to stop touching stuff, things getting tense when the repairman shows up, but Alec calms her that he doesn't know who lives here, getting her to let him in, filling in that blank. Dang, no ghost daughter or nothing, just some random home invader. Bummer. Alec empties the silverware drawer and puts together a plan to roam freely without Mindy giving him shit. He takes a bunch of Jackie's pills and smashes them up, putting them in her water bottle. Hearing the garage door opening, she pulls him back to the attic, ordering to him no more going downstairs, overhearing Jackie and the repairman's earlier conversation down below. Bored on their phones, she learns about the recently taken kids, which Alec is cold about, handing over her bottle loaded with meds, coyly remarking that she's gotta stay hydrated. She eventually passes out in a drug-induced dazed, and now the fun can begin. Dad again notices the missing photos as Alec waits in his mask nearby, then sets up the whole guinea pig thing, dropping some food on the floor and letting him out. He hides behind the bed, waiting for Greg to go in the closet, and blocks him in with a lacrosse stick, him savoring the moment until hearing Jackie yelling out for him, and hides under the bed, where we actually first saw him before. Then seeing he was the one that pulled off Greg's sheets, along with taking a big old whiz on him as he sleeps. She comes to early the next morning, Alec outside on the roof again, her angrily whispering for him to get back inside, and jokes about Greg thinking he pissed himself, her getting more frustrated as he was supposed to be cool. He says he's still not finished playing yet, her arguing that we're not supposed to terrorize them, we're supposed to coexist, which he clearly has no interest in. Overhearing Jackie and Todd's conversation, it's Alec that drops the coffee mug on him from above, Mindy wanting to leave right now, but their stuff is in the garage, needing a distraction to get back there. So much for that quick escape route, huh? Alec calls Jackie, putting on the record, and she follows after, Mindy hiding nearby, leading back to that conversation between Connor and his mom about taking him to school. Mindy gets to the garage, finding the injured Todd, and hides behind some boxes, watching as Todd gets up to search the cabinets, and gets hit by a bat courtesy of Greg, not Alec. Well, that was kind of a surprise at least. Him retrieving a duffel bag and putting it along with the bat in the back of his car. Then joins Spitz outside using the excuse that he was looking for some kind of file. While upstairs, Alec is busy cutting out the family's photos' eyes and mouths. Mindy at least manages to grab her bag, but is stopped by Jackie returning, overhearing her and Greg discussing what happened, and she's finally able to get out of the garage, coming to Alec in his mask, giving him a concerned look. He gets upset, telling her not to look at him like that, seeming to understand her partner is a little more unhinged than she bargained for. He grabs her arm, accidentally sending her tumbling down the stairs and knocking her unconscious. Oh, well, that was not good. Before helping her, he drags Connor's body to the tub, then putting her in the back of the car. He attempts to start it to no success, just as the couple come home, him quickly ducking out of sight. Hearing Jackie discovering her boy, he sneaks out and waits as she leaves with him, Greg following immediately after in his car that starts right up, Alex staring slack-jawed, knowing Mindy is still in the trunk. She starts coming to, finding the bloody bat in there, along with a jersey that says Witten on the back belonging to the missing Justin. Well, that's pretty damning, Greg, and even has the green knife from the scene that they found there too. Sure appears that Greg is the real one to worry about here at this point. He parks in the woods, her sneaking out while he's busy somewhere else, and makes a frantic call to 911, telling the dispatcher that she's with the kidnapper but doesn't know her location. The officer saying that they're tracking her via GPS, but the signal gets spotty and disconnects. Now knowing who it was that rang them that they were following in that other scene. You remember when the lieutenant came in and they were saying the GPS thing? She comes across an old Airstream trailer with newspaper covering the windows, seeing lights on inside. Peeking through a hole in the paper, she hears a boy's voice inside and muffled crying. She steps in, coming to a back room and finding two boys tied up begging for help and that he's going to kill us. She promises to not leave them and will get them out of here. But of course, Greg sneaks up, getting a plastic bag over her head. So much for being the hero, I guess. He drags her back to the car, noticing her backpack, the camera placed right on top, and plays back some footage, now recognizing who his latest victim is, muttering "son of a bitch" to himself and driving back home. Alec is still there, hiding in the shadows, watching Greg pull Mindy's still unconscious body to the guest room, forcing her awake and to her feet. Mindy pleading he doesn't have to do this. "Yes, I do," he coldly responds, and fires right in her face. Well, she's done for. Obviously, his intent is to make it look like they got into a firefight with a burglar, and to cover his tracks, fires more shots into the walls, and places the gun in her hand carefully with a towel to get her fingerprints all over it. Seems like he's done this before. He searches around, finding evidence of them left behind in the attic, along with the weird photo collage that Alec constructed. Then hearing that same song playing downstairs, taking us back to where we left off before we went back to the past and this whole thing. Now we're tied up. He doesn't notice Alec stalking up behind him and lunges, turning into a struggle as Alec is quickly disarmed, the two tumbling around on the floor. Greg grabs a fireplace poker, whacking him in the face and knocks him out. Now he's got more work to do for his increasingly convoluted cover story, stabbing himself in the shoulder with a knife. Yet when turning back to the living room, Alec isn't on the floor, now standing in the darkness and holding a gun, telling Greg he knows what you are, that he took those boys, while Greg argues his made-up story, that Alec took the boys and came here to terrorize the lead detective on the case. Hearing sirens approaching in the distance, Greg warns him of the ramifications of shooting a cop, but he's steadfast, and Greg tries a more pathetic victim approach, trying to give his backstory, starting with "when I was a little boy." Alex silences him with a "I don't give a fuck" and shoots him right in the chest as knocking is heard at the front door. Alec cries in relief looking at Greg's body, as Spitz busts inside, shooting him immediately when seeing him. But Alec isn't dead, weakly calling out to the detective. Later, the whole neighborhood is gathered around the scene, others at the murder trailer setting the boys free, and the detective finds the other evidence still in the duffel bag. So much for that cover story, Greg. Oh, we then flash back to piece together the personal reason that Alec wanted to get into the Harper's home in the first place, seeing him and the other boy Tommy as children. Remember, they said two of the killer's victims were able to escape, seeing them talking to a man holding a green knife. It's a younger Greg showing off the blade, noticing Alec has his Yoshi Pez dispenser that he still holds on to 15 years later. This meaning not only was Greg behind the current kidnappings, but also was responsible for all those murders many years ago, and probably had framed the other man, Gordon, for what he did, taking advantage of his position as a detective to get away scot-free. He was trying to do the same thing here, painting it that his home was invaded by burglars, but this particular Frogger got him in cold-blooded revenge for what almost happened in the past. I honestly have no idea if Helen Hunt had any idea about her husband's killer behavior at all up until now. Their whole relationship is really weird. And why did she even have the affair anyway? Was it because of having suspicions about Greg being a killer? It's like I said at the top of the video, the whole first chunk of the movie ends up not even mattering at all when we shift to Alec and Mindy's perspective. It becomes a much more standard home invasion thing, but now just filling in the gaps of what they were doing. I don't know, it just did not really work for me. But it did have some aspects that I felt were more successful, mainly the first half, and I actually like the weird kind of supernatural thing it was hinting at, but then it becomes like, oh no, it was just that dude pissed all over you while you're asleep. Not really, I don't know, it was kind of like a waste, I think. With that, we have reached the conclusion of this Ending Explained for I See You. And don't forget, you can send me requests for any movies or TV shows you'd like to see me explain by sending them my way on any of my social media accounts at FoundFlix. What did you guys think about I See You and its ending, and the overall thing it was doing there with all that stuff going in and filling in the gaps? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Thanks for watching FoundFlix. See you next time, because the movie. Good one.